Hi, welcome to What's Going On. Vaccine passports are an important topic. Some governments have already rolled out mandatory passports, but there remain people who are for or against them. As What's Going On is a channel to support you to live the most powerful life that you can, we have to look at this subject because it affects all of our lives. So let's start with those who would say yes to vaccine passports. Those of us who'd say yes would be making that decision for a number of reasons and would quite naturally be influenced by media, government, and of course the medical professionals. But the most important reason would be that with the onset of COVID, it would probably have been hard to find anyone who wasn't petrified at the thought that there were growing numbers of cases of people getting the virus and many were dying. It was hard to avoid the daily reminder that our hospitals were in danger of collapsing under the surge of infected people. Nightingale hospitals and mortuaries were being prepared, and we watched as the number of confirmed cases were rising hugely every day. We're instinctive beings, and when we're faced with danger, our instinct kicks in, and we immediately want to fight or flee. In this unprecedented time in history where there was no way to fight an invisible enemy, the best thing was, of course, to flee. And the majority of us willingly accepted the government's directives to stay home, isolate, and hope for our scientists to find a vaccine to keep us safe. Most of us believed vaccines were safe because we'd had them when we were young. We'd given them to our children and nothing happened to us, and in most cases nothing happened to our children either. So it made sense to protect ourselves and have confidence in vaccines because they'd stopped killer viruses like polio and smallpox. But when the lockdown hit, we woke every day, keen to see if there might be good news, but every day we faced the reminder that infections and deaths were rising and rising. Large numbers of the elderly had died, hospitals were overrun, and it was truly distressing. Fortunately and thankfully, vaccines were created in record time, and our elderly could at last receive them so they'd be safe. The vaccines, in the face of total vulnerability, fear and panic, offered relief to so many who have now received at least one jab. And now that very few people are dying because we've reached herd immunity, the UK Chief Medical Officer has said that the COVID-19 virus should now be treated like the seasonal flu. We wait eagerly for the government to set us free so we never return to house arrest, can stop wearing masks, stop social distancing, and be able at last to hug our loved ones, meet with friends, visit grandparents, return to work, and go on holidays. But there are a few problems. There's danger of new variants, and most irritatingly, not everyone wants the vaccine, let alone the vaccine passport. So let's look and see why that might be the case. Those of us who'd say no to vaccine passports would also be making the decision for a number of reasons. They too were frightened and panicked at the start, but as time went on, rather than sit like ducks petrified that their family and friends might die, they wanted to source as much information as possible, particularly as everything seemed to turn 360 degrees so drastically. Finding this information was hard, but eventually it began to emerge that leading scientists, professors, doctors and nurses in legal professions were challenging the validity of lockdown restrictions, saying that government responses, the scientific data and the growing case numbers attributed to a flawed PCR test were unjustified. Desperate to share their findings and create open debate with health officials and governments, many highly credentialed people tried to speak out. Many lost their jobs. Their social media platforms were removed. They were called conspiracy theorists. The The censorship and debunking, rather than deterring, confirmed to them that something wasn't right. So they tried to alert friends and loved ones to be open to all information, but they found angry responses. People stopped talking to them and told them they were crazy and conspiracy theorists. Many have now given up trying to share the most important censored information that they know, but facts remain that vaccines are not always safe, because right now in 2021 there's an epidemic of polio in Africa and India that's directly attributed to the vaccines thousands of children have been given. And like with the current COVID vaccines, pharmaceutical companies have zero liability if anything goes wrong. The concern of the anti-vaxxers also lies with the fact that way back in March of 2020, Public Health England downgraded the virus to not highly infectious status. Yet Boris Johnson locked down the UK 2 weeks later, and this has frustrated them. Now that the vaccines have been rolled out in record time, many who believe in the safety of vaccines are unaware that the vaccine is an experimental gene therapy that has never been used in human beings before. While supposed to be effective in reducing the symptoms of the virus, if it's contracted, it doesn't stop transmission, nor does it stop people getting the virus. Their worry and frustration remains heightened because it's being downplayed that there is worrying evidence on government-authorised websites like the US VAERS, UK Yellow Card and the EU databases on adverse reactions caused by the vaccines that are showing that tens of thousands of people have had very serious adverse reactions and thousands of people have died after taking the vaccine. Yet their loved ones are being told to keep taking the vaccine, unaware that it's still in experimental phase, at least until 2023. Some EU countries have banned one of the vaccines, and so it's important to ask that even if there were only a few people suffering serious side effects and have died, should everyone now be uniting and saying we should halt these vaccines because they are experimental and we don't know the long-term effects they might cause. 90+% of people survived the virus if they got it, and the majority of those who died, whilst still tragic, had underlying illnesses, poor immune systems, or were elderly. Is it time for us all to unite? To allow the world-renowned scientists who are asking to debate and offer their extensive scientific evidence that flags up concerns? Is it time to remove the censorship so we can get access to all the information we need, so we can stop living in fear of the next lockdown, the next mutant strain, mandatory passports that will track, trace and take away our freedom? Your answer lies with you. And I hope you will continue to make your own informed choices based on all the information you deserve to know. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe if you want to know what's going on, and share these videos with anyone who values and wants to grow their own power. Bye for now.